Good afternoon and welcome to Arts, Culture and Things in Between. Before I go further, I need to apologize for our late start. Living in the land of technological issues, and we sincerely apologize. Nonetheless, here we are, and let me tell you a little bit about arts, culture, and things in between. So Arts, Culture, and Things in Between is a program that features individuals who are gatekeepers of our arts and culture. They are not only performing artists, but also teachers, advocates, and scholars who focus on the preservation of the arts and culture. When arts is mentioned, it is being referred to as the different art forms, like visual, applied, or performing arts. Examples of visual arts are painting, sculpting, filming. Examples of applied arts would be like designing or building a project, constructing a project, fashion designing, working with the different patterns and fabrics would be considered applied arts. Jewelry designing, the way that the jewelry designer works with materials such as woods, plastic, silver, gold, metal, various types of stones would also be applied arts. Furniture designing would be considered design arts, the way that the furniture designer lays the woods, even cutting the woods and designing them. Performing arts is another aspect of the arts that I look at, and I'm simply talking about music, photography, opera, drama, singing, stand-up comedy, and just need to take pause with this one, dance. Culture is the middle name of the program, arts, culture, and things in between. When culture is mentioned, it generally means the way of life for a particular group of people. So for this program, it is inclusive to mean the various groups of individuals that embrace ways of life. In other words, looking at attitudes and behaviors. What is important to note is that as culture is mentioned, I'm really looking at how practices are passed from one generation to another. The last part of the name of the program, things in between. This has to do with life issues that affect the execution of the arts and cultural practices. It involves both positive and negative experiences that become a part of the creative process. Today's guest has so many elements of this program, the name of the program. But before we meet her, let me share her bio. Romola Lucas is an attorney, adjunct, and film producer who hails from Klein-Boudreaugne on the West Bank, Demerara, in Guyana, South America. She attended St. Gabriel's Primary School, then Bishop's High School before moving on to St. Rose's High School. She attended the University of Guyana for 2 years, where she began her studies in geography. Then in 1990, she migrated to the United States, specifically Washington, D.C. In 1992, Romola earned her associate degree in marine science. Then in 1995, a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science, both from the University of the District of Columbia. While at school, she worked at McDonald's to pay for her education. She was later afforded the opportunity of honors and basketball scholarship to pay off for school. That would be her undergrad education. She even played basketball for 3 years, representing her school until graduation in 1995. In 1995, Romola moved from Washington, D.C. to New York, and in 1997 began attending the City University of New York Graduate Center, where she spent 6 years in the doctorate program for Earth and Environmental Science before quitting. During these years, she taught Regents Earth Science at a high school in New York. In preparing for her profession as an attorney, in 2006, Romola graduated from Howard University Law School. Following graduation from 2006 to 2009, she began working with Reed Smith law firm in Philadelphia. Upon leaving Reed Smith law firm, she established her own company, Law Offices of Romola Lucas. In 2013, Romola earned a master's degree in tax law from Temple University. And while there, she worked as a freelance attorney in New York. She commuted between Philadelphia and New York twice weekly to accommodate her schedules. Her practice includes contract review, drafting and negotiation, estate planning and probate, business and nonprofit formation, and real estate in artist, senior, and LGBTQI communities. Romola is involved in the film industry. In 2012, she co-founded the Caribbean Film Academy, CAFA, a New York nonprofit company that deals with exhibition, production, and the distribution of Caribbean films. Through her work with CAFA, she produces films by filmmakers in the Caribbean and distributes Caribbean films through CAFA's online platform, and that was with Studio Anansi. In 2013, her first film, The Croft, was produced in Jamaica and directed by Wayne Benjamin. Romola's interest in the film industry stemmed from her desire to see Caribbean films and her thought that others may want to see them too. The plan that followed was the introduction of a meetup group that eventually led to researching a couple of films that were found through the film distribution company, Caribbean Tales. So, from 2012 to 2015, Caribbean cinema nights were held at Nicholas Variety Store in the Flatbush area of Brooklyn. There, films were screened once a month. In 2014, Studio Nancy TV was launched, and in 2015, the Caribbean Film Project was launched, where 4 short films were produced. The first film, Adero, was produced in Guyana and directed by Kojo Macpherson. The second, Osei and the Masqueraders, was produced in Dominica and directed by Alwyn Bully. The third, Jeb, was produced in St. Kitts and Nevis, directed by Cleon John. And the fourth, Essequibo Rapture, was produced in Guyana and directed by Karen. In 2016, Tamari Film Festival was launched in Guyana. This festival caters to Guyanese and Caribbean films, and screenings are held at 2 venues there in Guyana, Maury House and Dutch Bottle Cafe in Georgetown. Once screenings are completed, a few prisons and 1 juvenile detention center are afforded the opportunity to see some of these films. In 2016, Third Horizon Film Festival in Miami was launched. This Caribbean Film Festival allows for the screenings of avant-garde Caribbean films. The first 3 years of operation was mainly in Miami. Then in 2019, New York and Los Angeles were added. This year, CAFA and Third Horizon Media, from a previous connection that began in 2013, merged and is now called Third Horizon. At Third Horizon, there are 3 areas of focus: exhibition, production, and distribution. This year, her first music video that she directed, featuring Guyanese singer Vanilla, was released. Romola's work has not gone unnoticed. She is the recipient of awards and grants. In 2016, the Guyana Cultural Association of New York, Inc. acknowledged her contribution to the upkeep of Guyanese arts and culture in the film industry. In 2019, the Caribbean Life newspapers recognized her for the work she is doing in the Caribbean community. Third Horizon, of which she is the co-executive director and board chair, has been awarded 2 grants by the Knight Foundation and Ford Foundation, respectively, to continue the work that began with CAFA. Currently, Romola has scaled back her law practice and works only on referral basis. She spends most of her time working for Third Horizon and teaching an online course, Environmental Health, at the Bronx Community College, where she has been teaching since 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, before I invite Romola live and direct to the screen, let's just take a peek at who she is. Romola, welcome. I chuckled at those pictures. How are you?
I'm good, I'm good.
Thanks for joining me on Arts, Culture, and Things in Between. I hope you got a chuckle out of watching your pictures too. What are your thoughts looking at your pictures?
It was interesting to see someone else put them together and then show them to me.
Uh-huh.
I enjoyed looking. I enjoyed looking at them.
Oh man, you know, I am so happy that you have pictures though to share of your childhood, because many individuals, believe it or not, who come on the show, and I think it could be a matter of age, right? Because most of the older artists who've come on the show, when I ask them for childhood pictures, they can't find any. And then they would remember back in the day, you had to get dressed up and go to Acme photo studio or go to a studio to get pictures taken. And we didn't have the luxury of having a camera at home.
Right.
Right. So I guess it's all to do with time, age, and everything else in between. But welcome, welcome. I have to start and ask you I have to start by asking you, as a child, what were your interests?
Reading, reading books and reading maps. I had this dream of growing up to become a cartographer. So I would say those 2 things.
Okay, for those of us who don't know what a cartographer is, please explain.
A person who makes maps, who draws maps.
Now, in looking at maps and reading books, in retrospect, do you think you were looking at maps and reading about maps, if it were enough to really do justice to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say yes. So when I was the whole map thing, is how I started studying geography at UG. And I used to study like the capital cities of all of the countries in the world. I knew them all simply because I wanted to travel to all of them.
Huh.
And so that was the impetus behind it. And when I went to grad school, at CUNY, that's where I started off at first, trying to work my way. By the time I started grad school, though, cartography was no longer like a pen and paper thing. It became geographic information systems, and that meant learning computer software and digitizing the paper maps into digital maps and doing that type of work. And I did that for a while, but when it was time for me to do my dissertation, I couldn't find someone to work with in that area. And so
you have to change. Okay, so we'll come back to that.
yes,
Come back to that. So pretty much, let me ask you this. What did you want to become when you grew up? Yes, your interest was reading book. Yeah, was reading a book or books rather. You know, getting into the whole car map.
yeah.
Uh, what did you want to become when you grew up? Did you know from childhood that this is what you wanted to do, or it was something else?
That's what I wanted to do as a child. I wanted to be a cartographer and be a teacher. So I would teach geography in college. That's what I wanted to do.
Okay. So in some ways your plan materialized, actualized.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
who was influential in your life as a child, as you thought about wanting to become?
Oh wow. Both of my parents and my grandmother on my dad's side, my dad's mother. Um, and, and they were influential in terms of me becoming the person that I am more than my career. So they were all very supportive. You know, we grew up in Guyana in the 70s. So it was school, 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 school. You have to do good in school. So there was all of that. But there was also the encouragement and support that I got to do what I wanted to do. My dad majored in geography at UG
Okay.
as well. So maybe that's where my interest comes from. I don't know. My mother is a linguist, and I kind of didn't follow that road. And my grandmother, but she was there for the other aspects of growing up and becoming a person. Um, and then my grandmother was all of the spiritual stuff.
So you had no choice.
Right.
That
Right.
uh, geographer, mama linguist, granny who is like grounded spiritually,
Right.
education, school, school, school. Don't want to hear anything else.
Right.
Typical Caribbean parent.
Yes. Yes.
That's parenting, you know, from granny. Now you attended St. Gabriel's. Uh, what activities at St. Gabriel's Primary School, if any, prepared you for what you eventually embarked on later on as
I can't tell you. I would say, I guess the one thing I would say is preparation for being a good student. I got that there. The teachers were, I think, overly strict. I didn't need all of that, but the structure, I guess, helped. It showed me how things should be done, and I was able to use that later on in life because I got a very good foundation at the school.
what's your most memorable childhood experience?
Oh, childhood as in how young?
You tell me, I don't care.
Oh, wow.
Are there so many?
Yeah, yeah, there are many. I would say the
What's
first
the
time
big one? Let's go teenage years.
teenage years. Well, so teenagers, I would say the most memorable thing would have been moving to live in Jamaica for 2 years on and off, with my mother and my siblings.
Okay.
She had gone there to work, and then we followed her. So I
What
went. I
around what
actually,
year was that?
sorry, say that
Around
again.
what year?
The first time I was 13.
Okay.
So I skipped third form at Bishop's,
Uh-huh.
and I went to third, and I did third form at a school in Jamaica.
Okay.
And then I came back to Bishop's and did fourth form. And then I skipped fifth form at Bishop's because I went to Jamaica again, to a different school.
Uh-huh. How was the experience going to school in Jamaica compared to Guyana?
I mean, mostly it was good because I had a different accent than all the Jamaicans, and they loved it. So every time, so I made friends there, I would say, and they're lifelong friends. I'm still friends with a lot of the people that I went to school with. The first time when I was 13 and then back again when I was 15, I'm still friends with them. So
That's cool.
they had and they had I was part of this in high school in the second part in fifth form. I was part of this posse called the Marshalls. It was an all girls school, so we were trying to be bad, but we were all nerdy. So I don't know. So I would say those memories are the most striking.
Now, when you went back, it's the same school you went back to that you
No,
done the third form, or you went to a different school for the fifth form?
yeah, a different school.
Oh, okay, okay. No, so I have to ask you, you're back and forth between Jamaica and Guyana and between Bishops and the two schools that you were doing in Jamaica.
Right.
What were your Bishops peers saying to you? Oh, you must be lucky.
Actually, I lost touch with a lot of people because of that. Um, eh, because we weren't, back then, communication when you're traveling is by letters.
Okay.
And then you're young, like I was. When I went to Jamaica, I missed Guyana and I missed my friends and I missed the school, but I was into life in Jamaica. And I was, playing, I learned to play netball. I learned to throw the discus. I became an athlete in Jamaica. And so that was taking up all of my time and effort. So then I saw my friends when I came back for fourth form, and it was just like I didn't leave. And then I left for fifth form. And this time when I came back, I didn't go to Bishops, I went to St. Rose's. So now, though, because of social media, I've reconnected with almost everyone that I went to school with, and so who are in social media, and so now we're friends again.
Let me ask you this. It's quite touchy a question. I'm preparing you. Do you feel like if you now that you've moved past your high school years, you feel like an alum of Bishops, considering that you moved a couple of years in between? And
Um,
Roses, I'll ask you that.
yeah, I mean, honestly, no. Um, Bishops is the school I wanted to go to. Is the school I passed for. And for the first
Past, you mean is in common entrance?
pass common entrance for, yes, that's yes. So all of that was good, and I made a lot of good friends there. But I didn't graduate from Bishops.
Mhm.
Well, the school I went to in Jamaica was called Bishop Gibson. So, and we called it Bishops. So I did, but just not by Bishops. Um, and then when I went to St. Rose's, I actually I did sixth form at St. Rose's, and I was actually the top graduating student when I graduated from high school from St. Rose's. So even though I only went there for 2 years, it just seems like that was like a lot more happened in those 2 years than what happened at Bishops.
Mhm. I can understand that, you know, the back and forth and a couple of years would make a lot of difference growing up, you
Yeah.
know, they would make a lot of difference. All right, let's take a quick peek at some more of who Romola is, of who you are, Romola, and then we'll come back and chat some more. All right. Romola, I love it. I love those are the best. Those candid shots, those candid clips. I love it. I love it. You know, I love your free spiritness, your free spiritedness. I love it. So you attend Bishops, or let me remind folks, those of you who joined late, we started late and we apologize for it. So you didn't miss much. I'm sitting with Romola Lucas, who is an attorney, an adjunct, and entrepreneur, and lots of other things in between. But Romola, we started talking just now about your attendance to Bishops, then St. Rose's, and you kind of sort of compared the experience. Now in high school, let's look at career thoughts about high school.
Uh-huh.
How confident were you about your career when you left sixth form at St. Rose's?
Right. So sixth form from St. Rose's, then transitioned to first year at UG. So at St. Rose's, I was in the business stream. So I did shorthand, typing, principles of business accounting, and all of those things. And when I went to UG, I wanted to study geography because that was still what I wanted to do. Even though I had done 2 years at St. Rose's and was in the business stream, I I went back to this idea of teaching geography in college. That's what I wanted to do. It was there. And so I went to UG and I started to study geography. In terms of I would say I didn't think that I was that prepared for UG to be that type of student and the type of student in my mind, which is, everyone that I knew that went to UG was always studying and grades were always very important. And I didn't sure that I had it in me to actually like go there and do well. But that wasn't the case. I was fine. But I did have some trepidation leaving high school and going to university.
When I read your bio, I look at the earth science, the environmental science, all of these science, geography, and I'm thinking, law? Okay. But now that we're having this discussion, it's beginning to really make sense for me. Now, I have to bring this one up because I think it's so awesome that you migrated to the US and after you've had, I would say, a fairly sound foundation in the Caribbean between Guyana and Jamaica and UG, going to UG after high school, and UGS in the University of Guyana, folks. Then in the midst of your University of Guyana studies, after doing 2 years, you migrated in 1990 and you migrated to Washington, DC. You attended the University of DC and you got your 2 undergrad degrees, right? Associate degree in marine science and your bachelor degree environmental science. And then I was looking at the fact, folks, that Romola worked at McDonald's. You hear in this community, you hear folks saying to their children, if you don't get your education, you'll end up at McDonald's flipping burgers, right? So I found it remarkable that you were flipping burgers to actually pay for your education, So some of you parents out there who are telling your children they'll end up flipping burgers, it's not a bad thing. Romola, talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, when I first came up, it was difficult. Because when you get to the United States, so I left in June. So before I took my final exams, so I was expecting when I got there that I would start school in the US in September and I was going to continue doing geography. But none of the schools I could afford to go to had geography as a major. So at this point, geography is starting to be phased out as a major. The only school that had it was Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. And if you know anything about Georgetown University, it's not a place for an immigrant like me. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing was that I learned about in-state and out-state tuition. So in order for me to be able to go, so I decided I was going to go to UDC, but in order for me to be able to go there, I had to pay in-state tuition because I couldn't afford out-of-state tuition. My family couldn't. And so that meant I had to sit a year out. And so in that year, I worked at McDonald's. And at the time, the pay was $3 an hour. And and my sister and I did this, and we lived with my dad, and we were able to save up money, and with the help of my mother, the next year start university. But then I had to start over because my geography credits didn't transfer, and I couldn't study geography, so I started over, and I just picked the closest thing to geography that I could, which was environmental science and marine science. Um, and so for the first year of that, I worked at McDonald's, and to take 18 credits, it was $600, and it would take an entire 3-4 months of working to save up $600 to be able to pay this tuition. But after the first semester, my grades were good. I got an honor scholarship, so that paid my tuition for the following semester, and then for the rest of the time that I was there. And then I got a basketball scholarship, started playing basketball. I was shooting around in the gym one day, and the coach came over and said, "You play basketball?" I said, "I haven't really played. I just shoot around." And she said, "Well, we need somebody else for the team, so can you join?" And I was like, "Sure." And then the first year we didn't actually play any games, but then after that we got a new coach, and I got a scholarship then, another scholarship. And then we played for the last 2 years. But that's what that is. Yeah.
I am listening to your story, Romola, and I am in awe for many reasons, and I'll quickly share them. But the piece that's really gripping my heart is how you had to relook at your expectations as an immigrant. Because so many people who aren't immigrants yet think that things are easy in the
Right.
United States until your feet are planted on the ground and
Right.
your life, whoever your is, becomes real.
Mhm.
And you realize that you want to take geography. The schools that you can afford don't have geography. There is no particular means to pay for them. And when you look around, you have to work. You may not think that you would have been a worker at an employee at McDonald's, and you did it with pride, because guess what? McDonald's is part of your story when you talk about your success, and I like it. But the piece that's really gripping me is that a lot of people look at us, and I did say us folks, and I'm not throwing shade here. A lot of people look at us and see what we've accomplished, don't know our stories,
Right.
don't know our hardships and
Right.
past judgment.
Right.
And that's why your story gripped my heart, because hadn't I been having this conversation with you, I would not have known. You know, I read all your accolades. She's done this, she's gone to this, she's done this, I mean, well decorated, creative, and the backstory is so heart wrenching. I mean, to hear you, and then the gift, the gift of sportswomanship, with you just throwing the hoops, and then what do you know, divine intervention, the coach walks up and asks you, and then forget
Yeah.
that, I need some money to pay for my education. So that fell into place, and that was awesome. So before you got onto the basketball team, no experience playing basketball?
No, I used to play netball in Jamaica,
Uh-huh.
and I was pretty good at shooting. And so when I came back and I went to St. Rose's, I
Mhm.
would I would shoot around on the basketball court with the guys when they let me.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so I learned a little bit there, but I didn't actually play formally
Mhm.
before I got to college. Um, so yeah, and I was just playing around in the gym that day.
So you represented your school, though.
Yes, I played for the team was the Lady Firebirds. I
Uh-huh.
played on the team. I was a shooting guard. I didn't start because I didn't have the basketball IQ.
Okay.
The other girls playing on the team, they played in high school, and they were recruited to play at this school.
Okay.
And it was a Division 2. And our final year playing, we made it to the playoffs. but we lost in the first round. But that's the furthest, like we had a something when we first started off, our record was 2 wins, 22 losses or something like that. So, and I mean, talk about hardships, right? We had practice at 6 a.m. every day. So that means waking up at 5 to get to campus for 6 for a 2-hour practice before school starts. And also, yes, it also meant driving, especially when we played in Pennsylvania or played in these far off places. And the game started at 6 o'clock. You go, you leave school, you drive up there to play at 6, leave at 9, have dinner, and then come back. So you get back to school at midnight, and then practices at 6 a.m. Yeah. So this was life for 3 years.
But it's work for 3 years. Hell with
Yeah.
that. We're working for that scholarship. Because a lot of times too, when people hear scholarships, they're thinking, oh, you don't have to do anything much. But you are still earning your keep, a different type of work from McDonald's, but still earning your keep to pay for your education. Love the story. Love the story. No. So I think by now, for those of you who have been with us, you may understand the switch from geography, marine science, environmental science to law. But I have to ask you, what is responsible for your pivoting from the sciences, from marine and environmental science to law?
Right. It was a couple of things. So while I was in doing the PhD program in environmental science in New York, I was also teaching in high school. And New York City had gotten to the point where they were taking the larger high schools and breaking them up into smaller schools. So now they call them campuses. And in one building, which used to be one school, you have 3 or 4 different schools. And they were going to move me. I was teaching at a school in Crown Heights, in that area. And they were going to move me from there to send me to teach in Sheepshead Bay. So it's a completely different student body, one that I was not interested in teaching at all. Because I was interested in teaching in the Crown Heights neighborhood because a lot of kids from the Caribbean came and lived there. And so that was the population of the school. So that's what I wanted to do. So that happened, and I sort of made a decision. I was on the fence about whether or not I wanted to remain in teaching. Also because I didn't see myself being 50 years old and teaching in the same school that I was teaching at when I was 20 something. And so I didn't see, even though I always wanted to be a teacher and I wanted to teach geography, I was teaching earth science. I didn't see myself, once I started teaching, I didn't see myself doing it for a long time. I didn't want, I'd been teaching, I taught for 7 years. And in that time, the students who I taught the first year had started coming back to say hello and tell me about their jobs and they're married and all of this stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna, that just made it real that I did not want to be here all this time. I love my students and I love teaching, but I didn't want that. At the same time, I'd been in the PhD program for 6 years. And I wanted to do, as I said, cartography / geographic information systems, and I wasn't able to. So I was moving into a different area of environmental science on the geology side. And I got to the point where it was time for me to start working on my dissertation. And I was doing geochemistry. It was going to be in some aspect of geochemistry. And I learned that one experiment would take 5 years to run to be complete. And I was like, okay, I've been in school for 6 years already. Because I didn't do a master's, I skipped the master's. I just like, I don't want master's, I want PhD. So why am I gonna do a master's? So I just went into the PhD program. And so add another 5 years to those 6 years, I was essentially burnt out. I just couldn't see it. And I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. And then one of my statistics professor was a woman at Hunter College. And I was talking to her one day and she, opened my eyes to the fact that she, as a woman professor, with better qualifications than the male professors in the department, she was paid less. And what she was being paid is what I was earning as a high school teacher. So then I was like, so what am I really doing? I'm in school doing all of this stuff, getting all this education to teach in college to earn less than the males and then to earn as much as I would if I was teaching in high school. So it's sort of, things started to not make sense to me anymore. So then I was like, okay, if I quit, I will only have a bachelor's degree. This is how I'm thinking about it. I need something else. Like I can't just like have a bachelor's degree. So what's the next best thing? Law. I also, my aunt was Elizabeth Hines. She was a magistrate in Guyana. And I was living with her for a part of the time when she was in law school. So, and we used to talk about her cases and stuff like that. So that interested me, and I love looking at law and order. So, you know, all of us who like looking at law and order think that we could be lawyers.
Right.
And and then a law degree takes 3 years. So I was like, okay, after spending 6 years and having nothing, I will spend 3 years and have something that I could do something with. And that's why I decided to go to law school, because I kind of had an affinity to it. And the degree period, the time for the degree was short.
Yeah. Wow. I love it. I love it. I love it. So as an attorney, you deal with contract review, drafting and negotiation, estate planning, and probate, business and nonprofit information, and real estate, artist, senior, and LGBTQI communities.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you a ticklish question.
Uh-huh.
What is your preference of all the law services you offer? What is your preference?
Uh-huh. Doing contract work for creatives, any kind of creative.
Wow. I am so glad you say that. Here why. Many artists, especially the young ones, in the industry, in the creative industry, sometimes they get so taken up with just producing whatever their talent is that they don't think about the legal aspect, the business aspect of it. So I'm glad to hear that you're saying that. But I'm also wondering, how are you reaching out, if you are, to make sure that folks who can benefit from the services that you offer, know that you're offering it? That's what I'm thinking too. That's what I'm thinking.
Right. So that's tricky. Because it requires me to be very organized around marketing and networking. And those are not two things I am very organized around. I'm also not, it also requires me to have a high drive to make things happen. And the way that I prefer to work with the legal practice is for it to be more organic and for me to build whatever it is. Because I'll say this, right? I started off in the corporate environment at a law firm, doing real estate, doing commercial real estate, working for large banks who are lending billions of dollars to companies, and we would just be papering those deals. So when I was laid off and I had to develop my own practice, the question I had to answer was, would I try to emulate that practice or try to go get a job somewhere else to do the same thing because it paid well? Or should I use this as an opportunity to try to figure out what it is that I want to do and do that? And so that's kind of how I got into my own law practice. So I just picked the areas of the law that I liked, and I decided I was going to practice those. But then you have to build your business in each of those in order for this to be something that you're doing. And so this is where marketing and stuff like that comes into play. And I'm not good at that stuff. I'm not. And so it's been more organic. So I would meet people. So actually working in film has opened up a lot of spaces for me in my law practice, because I meet people in film and we're talking about film or some other creative thing. And then they hear that I'm an attorney, and then they say, oh yeah, you're an attorney. What kind of work do you do? And then I say what I do, and then they were like, okay. And so that's how I started building that practice, just by meeting people. And I haven't put any effort unfortunately, into like marketing it, other than having a website and a Facebook page where people can reach me.
Good. I love it. I love it. I love it. We'll come back. We'll come back. Let's take a look at some more of Romola, who Romola really is. Let's take a peek.
Single time.
Oh, this again. Tell you what, I don't even want to get into this shit. Not now. Wrong place, wrong time. You probably just a look at excuse to start an argument so you can go tear off one of the mountain girl the draws, then come back and talk shit about how we broke up like last time.
Which mountain? Look, Ramona, I'm here to write, all right? That's it. That's all I want. Time and the space to write. That is it. But you see what I'm talking about, though, Ramona? Every time, every single time, I just need to talk to you for like more than 5 minutes, and this is where it ends up.
Alright, no need to end this on a sour note. You know I love you, Derek. I just want to support you, so do your thing. But me serious about them country mountain gal they. Them just up in the bushes and wait for a sexy brown man like you to draw away in a cave.
You know, I swear, you're a complete idiot. Look, all right, another thing. Seriously, Rems, you need to tell your sister to give me a break, all right? No, I appreciate what she's trying to do for me, Ramona. But you see the extra pressure she put on, it's unnecessary. Look, ask her to relax.
Derek?
Hold on, Ramona.
Derek? Derek? Derek, what?
Romola.
Yes, yeah.
Wow. You know, that was something else. We just watched The Croft, a little snippet of The Croft, your first film that was produced in Jamaica and directed by Wayne Benjamin. And how was this experience for you to produce this film, and what was it about this particular film? I gotta tell you, I almost jumped out of my seat when I watched it.
Right. So this film was produced, or we shot this film in 2013. This was a year and a half into the founding of CAF, which was founded in 2012, which at the time, as you mentioned, I sort of started doing because I wanted to see Caribbean films. And in one of those months where I had to find films to show, we didn't have any films. And so we put out a call, like somewhere in mandy.com and in some other places, asking for films. And Wayne submitted the previous version of this film, which was like a 7-minute version that he had shot. And we showed the film, but then afterwards we continued the conversation with him. And he basically said that he had an entire script. He wanted to shoot this thing, but he needed money for it. And so this is how CAFA started to do some other things other than just screening films. And so the person who started CAFA with me, my friend Justin Blaze, he's a cinematographer. I have no experience making films, none, but a desire to learn the process. And because I am somewhat organized, I got the role of producer. and he was the cinematographer. We combined our efforts. We did a Indiegogo campaign to raise money to make the film. I think we wanted to raise something like $6,000, and we raised 2,000. And we took that $2,000 and went to Jamaica. Met up with Wayne, who was the director, and he's the main actor in the film as well. He's the guy. We'd never met him before. We didn't know anything about him, but this is what we're doing. We're living our lives. And we shot this film, and I learned on the job how to be a producer. Like, and there are a whole bunch of different types of producers on film sets. And so I specifically for this job learned how to be a line producer. And so that was that experience, and it was an amazing experience. And since then, I've continued to learn how to produce films in different capacities.
So aside from doing Guyanese, aside from wanting to see Guyanese and Caribbean films and doing something about this, I'm wondering what else drove you to the film industry?
You know, once I started being able to access films and watch them, and I started to understand how we are making films and how the way that we make films in the Caribbean is different from the way Hollywood films are made, for example. Because Hollywood films, that's the standard, right? You go to the movies and it's big budget, millions of dollars they spend to make these films. And it's big action, big everything on screen. When you look at Caribbean films, everything is small. Small budgets, small cast, not a whole lot of action. The stories are really very different than the types of stories you get out of Hollywood. And I guess one of the most powerful things to me was sitting down to look at a film and hearing a Caribbean accent, whether it was Guyanese or Jamaican or whatever, on the screen talking to me. With that, there was a connection that I felt that I never felt looking at a Hollywood film. The Hollywood films are just like things out there, you know, big budget entertainment. You go and you get entertained and you leave. But looking at Caribbean films, it's more about, I felt more connected to them because the stories are more what I knew and understood. And, you know, seeing yourself and your lives reflected on screen is a very, very powerful thing. And so that happened for me. And so then I just started to think about all the people that it would happen for if they were able to see their own stories being told by their own filmmakers, rather than, you know, a Caribbean film that is told by a Hollywood director. It's a very different film or a very different way of storytelling than how a Caribbean person would do it. And so once I got into it and we started to show more and more films, what happened is that people would come to the screenings, and after the screenings, we would have these long extended conversations about the films, the actors, the story, the connections that people made. And these screenings, the cinema nights that we used to have at Nicholas, these things became like therapy sessions where people would come to like look at these films, hear these stories, feel like they're home, and then talk about it with people who understood what the experience was. And that is what happened, and that is what kept me doing this, like the desire to have those conversations and have the space where those conversations can happen, and see more and more stories being created over which we can have those types of conversations. That's what is keeping me doing this.
You know, I'm connecting with your sincerity. I feel it. And as you're talking, I'm also reflecting on what I went back into clinical social work recently, and I have a young African-American girl. She is like 13 or 14, I think she is. She was born here. Her parents are from, I think St. Lucia or one of the small islands. And she's had the luxury of going back and forth, right, during the holidays. And she just loves going to the Caribbean, aside from the fact that it's a trip. She loves her cousin's accents and all of that. And one of the things she said, in the sense of when she's watching films or hearing stories being told, if those stories or the films that she's watching are not speaking to her directly, she cannot connect. And I
Right.
truly get it because film watching, being involved in the arts and all of that is therapeutic. By the way, she's a dancer. It's very therapeutic.
Right.
And for things to be therapeutic, they have to speak to our core in some way.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so I truly feel what you're saying because you can actually switch roles with
Uh-huh.
the characters in the films. That's what you're saying. And it's like your story is
Yeah.
told.
Yeah. And it happens like we were part of starting the first film festival in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's called Hirona Film Festival. And at that festival on the last night, I mean, there were lots of good things that came out of that experience. But on the last night of the festival, we showed a film by a St. Lucian filmmaker who was living in Jamaica at the time. So the film was shot in Jamaica, and it was about a young girl who worked in a hotel, and she was poor. She needed money, and one day she had to make a choice that that dealt with the goings on at that hotel. And so after the film was done, a young girl that was in the audience came up and said, I love this story. This could be me.
Wow.
And I love what you all are doing. And I hope you come back next year. And that was the first time. Also, let me just say this. Doing the film stuff has now allowed me to travel all over the Caribbean because
I'm
of this.
getting to that just now in a minute. I want your job.
Caribbean. And that is going back to my geography travel days.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Yeah, I also took a peek at that. I was like, okay, Romola, wink, wink. You're here and you're there and you Romola everywhere. But we'll come back to that. So you're involved in a few film companies, and one of them is the Caribbean Film Academy, CAFA,
Yeah. Mhm.
Which is a nonprofit company, and
Right.
you're a co-founder of
I'm a
CAFA.
co-founder of CAFA, yes.
Now, is CAFA the body that is responsible for films being shown at BAM?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
tell us how CAFA works.
Right. So most people, when they hear the name Caribbean Film Academy, they think it's a school, but it's not a school. We kind of patterned it after the Film Academy, which gives awards and stuff like that to filmmakers. But we basically started off screening films after and in a little store where we could manage it. We started off small, um, and then I had a friend. Um, this guy's name is Curtis John. He is of Guyanese parentage. He was born in the US, but his parents are Guyanese. And he's very close to his Guyanese culture. So we connected. And he used to run a film festival at BAM called New Voices in Black Cinema. Um, and so he had relationships there. And since he was Caribbean, I wanted to like connect more with his Caribbean roots. He and I, put together this idea for a screening series that he pitched to BAM, and they liked it. They've been looking for ways to reach and connect with the Caribbean community, and so they thought that this was a good way to do so. And so the very first screening at BAM was in 2014, in April of 2014, and we screened a film called the feature film was a film called God Loves the Fighter, and it's a Trinidadian film, and the theater was completely sold out. It was oversold. People were sitting on the seats on the sides of the largest theater in BAM because that's how it works. The theater you get placed in depends on the number of tickets you get sold the day before the screening. And that's how they decided. And we sold out that screening and went on to we would then screen films every quarter, so 4 films a year. And that happened up until this year. We had one screening and then coronavirus mash up everything. But
And
yeah.
how many years you've been screening at BAM?
So from 2014 to now, to 2020. And then in 2019, we had our first film festival, our first Caribbean film festival in New York, which we call the Caribbean Film Series Festival because that's the name of the film series, and it was held at BAM. Yeah, so that was our first venturing out of Third Horizon and having a festival somewhere else.
So there was a connection with BAM already.
Uh-huh.
right? And that's how you were able to collaborate with BAM.
Yeah.
You're saying somebody had the M. Okay.
Yes.
So I noticed that there are a few different film festivals that you talk about in
Yes.
your bio, and
Yes.
there are different locations.
Yes.
Travel here, travel there, travel everywhere.
Yes.
Um, what is the goal of holding film festivals in various places? What is the goal?
Right. So in today's world, we have to talk pre-corona and post-corona, right? So pre-corona, the goal was to make Caribbean films available to as many people as possible. So how do you do that? So we started off with the online platform. We have Studio Nancy TV, which is a place where you can go look at Caribbean films, but you have to pay for the films. And a lot of Caribbean people pre-corona were gun shy about putting their information online because they don't want it to be hacked or whatever. But whatever the reason is, a lot of Caribbean people in the region and even outside, they generally did not use digital means to consume content. They would pay money to go to a screening or go to the cinema, but not to consume it online. And a lot of these films that show at film festivals, a lot of Caribbean films that show at film festivals, when their film festival run is done, you can't see the films anymore. But there's, in my opinion, they're still valuable, and they should still be seen by more people. And so we started with Third Horizon Film Festival in Miami because our partners there, Third Horizon Media, they got a grant to do a film festival there. But they're filmmakers and they're like, we don't really know how to put on a festival, but you've been putting on screenings in New York all this time. So why don't we work together and put this festival on? So that's what we did. We started there. At the same time, because this was 2016, at the same time, I'm from Guyana. I'd been doing the film stuff now for 4 years. I'm like, it's time to go to Guyana and do a festival there. Like, who are the Guyanese people that are making films? Can we showcase their work? And can we bring some Caribbean films from other countries? Because there's a whole, besides the travel, there's a whole learning experience about other Caribbean cultures that we don't know anything about, right? Like what it is like to actually live in Jamaica or live in Barbados or live in Trinidad. We don't know that. And some of these stories like give you that perspective. And so started the Timeri Film Festival in Guyana, also because I like the name Timeri, and I'm not happy that the airport is not named that anymore. So I was like, I'm going to use this name for this festival. So we started those two. And then the idea was that we would, so the festival in Miami is like 4 days. We have funding for that festival, right? So it's 4 days. We bring artists in, we fly filmmakers in. It's like a film festival. The festival in Guyana is different. We're not able to fly filmmakers there, and the audience for looking at these types of films is not there as yet either. So that was there. So there's some building that needed to be done. So we the festival in Guyana is also 4 days, but it's just films, and we have conversations afterwards, after the films. And then we take those films around to different places in Guyana, like as I mentioned, the prisons and stuff like that. But this is all in an effort to physically bring films to people so that they can see them, because otherwise they would have no access to them.
Yeah. I want to ask you, go
Yeah.
ahead. Do you want to say something else?
I was just going to wrap it up and say, so the idea was to start in Guyana and do something similar in all of the English-speaking Caribbean countries. Hence the film festival in St. Vincent.
Okay.
We were a part of that. And working on the others, but now post coronavirus or during post coronavirus, a lot of things have opened up because now everything is being done online, and so even our Caribbean people are doing things online and they're seeing how easy it is. And so the idea is that hopefully we would see an increase in the viewership of films online, and we would continue to do more of our programming online.
So what I'm hearing you say is that during coronavirus, because we're still in it,
Right.
during coronavirus, the coronavirus will prepare us what's going to happen post coronavirus.
Yes.
This would have laid the foundation in terms of being more receptive to the fact that a lot of activities can happen virtually. Hence,
Right.
we are here talking
Right.
about this. I
Right.
also want to put a plug though for what you and your peers are doing in terms of reaching out to the prison systems in Guyana and allowing the prisoners the opportunity to experience the films, and even to even about the work that you're doing with the detention center in Guyana. I think that's commendable. And we're looking at your community work that is really wide in scope. And when I say wide in scope, I am really looking at the reach around the Caribbean region. That's what I'm talking about. So kudos to you for that. Why don't we take another peek at some more of your work?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for those of you who have joined late, I'm Rose October, sitting with Romola Lucas, filmmaker, attorney, adjunct, and everything else in between. Let's take a quick peek at her work. All right, I'll settle for that again. Not sure what's happening on the back end, but I want to talk to this film that we should have seen just now, Jose and the Masqueraders, produced in Dominica and directed by Alwyn Bully. Hopefully we might still be able to see it. How did you get to do that film in Dominica?
Right. So that video on the beach, that's in Dominica, in the village where we were shooting that film.
Okay.
So that came about through continuing on our efforts to work and support Caribbean filmmakers. We started a project in 2015 named the Caribbean Film Project, which was something like a script competition where people submitted scripts. We picked 4 scripts. We paired each of the filmmakers with a writing coach to work on their scripts a bit more.
Mhm.
And the second part of this, we were supposed to pair them with a directing coach. That part didn't actually come true, but they all had some experience already directing. And then we helped each one of the filmmakers or the writers of the scripts to fundraise to get money to make these films. And so how this one happened with Osei is that in the meantime, we started Third Horizon Film Festival. And at that festival, someone from Time Warner 150 was in attendance. She came to watch the films, and and so I met her and we had a conversation, and I told her about the film project, and I was like, we're trying to get money to make these 4 films. And she said, okay, send me the scripts. Let me see what you got. So I sent her the scripts, and she read them, and she came back and said, this is the one that they would want to fund. And they fully funded this film. And so in the meantime, Alwyn is, he's an icon in the Caribbean.
Mhm.
I never heard of him before I left Guyana and started working in film. He was in one of the first films I saw, one of the first Caribbean films I saw, which is now also available on a Nancy. But then I learned that he used to direct the National Theater in Jamaica.
Oh, okay.
Did that for many years. He's from Dominica, but that's what he did for many years. And he's a playwright in his own right. And some of his plays back in the day were staples in Caribbean schools. I didn't know anything about this man, but we connected. We went to film festival together. We connected, and we decided to work together on this film. So that's how we came to make it. It was through the film project.
Do you scout for filmmakers?
I don't scout anymore because for me to do that, I will have to have money to make the films.
Uh-huh.
We did that as a one-time project to try to work through that process. We were able to help the filmmakers raise funds for those films and help them to make the films. And that's kind of how we saw the film project working, is being a support to the filmmakers in whatever way we can. And so I wouldn't say that I scout for films. We're always on the lookout for good films. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Because we have several venues that the films can go out of, right? We can show them at the festival. We can show them at one of our screening series. We can offer the VOD platform for the film to be on. And so I'm always interested in films, and the interest comes with pushing them out through one of our channels.
Okay. So then, with respect to collaborating, because I'm thinking that by now, you know, the different entities that you're involved in, they're known in the film industry, especially in the Caribbean, because we have a way of, you know, connecting, networking well in our spaces in the Caribbean.
Mhm.
I'm also wondering, what is the range of nationalities of collaborators that you're working with?
Oh, I mean, this is one of the things I would say that we have done, and we've done very well, is work with people. And so in the organization alone, so we have grown. So I'll just, I guess, skip ahead a little bit. So CAFA there were two of us there. And then we met with the folks from Third Horizon Media in Miami. And there are two of them. One is from Barbados, the other from Jamaica. So, and I'm from Guyana, and my partner at CAFA is from Grenada. And so we had Guyana, Grenada, Barbados, and Jamaica all in one. Right? So now we've merged, and now we have other people working with us. And the other people working with us are from Haiti, Cuba, some more Jamaicans, Barbados. And then when we partner with people, they're usually Caribbean people. So like we worked with Alwyn in Dominica. We worked, and there are other filmmakers that we've since been connected to in Dominica. We worked in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We partnered with a young filmmaker there to help start the film festival there. We partnered with people in Guyana to put on Tumeri Film Festival. The festival, the film series I mentioned at BAM, that was a Guyanese connection. And then even in LA, we have our festival in LA at USC, University of Southern California School for the Cinematic Arts. That is the #1 film school in the country. And the person who runs the communications department there is a Guyanese woman named Disa Philadelphia, who I went to St. Gabriel's with. And we're still friends. And so we connected, and we have that platform, which is our film. So collaborations are very important, and that type of relationship building has been very important to our growth. And we try to spread it as far and wide as possible.
Yeah. So when we look at your life as a producer, wondering if we should think of you being influential in the selection of actors, or especially if it's a new idea for a film.
Right.
As a producer from that level, the startup of a film, are you involved with selection of actors, or maybe suggestion of an actor for a particular role, or locations for shooting? Are you involved on those levels?
Yeah, and yes, and it depends on the it depends on the production. Some directors. So as a producer, I generally find the story and the director.
Okay.
And then I would also have to, bring on the crew for the most part. I would say these are people that I know and I've worked with before, and I would like to work with again. So when we made that film in Dominica, the crew was, here we go, right? So there was one person from Grenada, there was Yafet Jackman, who is Guyanese and into filmmaking. He was our cinematographer, and then there was Aiko Rudet, who's from St. Vincent. And so we had like a multi-nationality film set in Dominica. And that's kind of how that's kind of how I like to work. But yes, I find the story, find the director, find key crew. The director generally, is the one who decides on actors, on casting, with my support. And then part of line producing is finding locations, it's creating shoot schedules, it's creating call sheets, it's doing all of the nitty gritty of the day to day of making a film.
Have you ever written a film?
No, I have not written one.
Is there a plan?
I have aspirations to do so. Yes.
Okay. One last question before we take another peek at your work. What fascinates you about producing films? Aside
Ooh.
from seeing yourself reflected on the screen.
Just it's been a huge learning process for me. Just like learning and understanding what is involved in telling a story, and coming to the realization that good storytellers are people who understand uh, people, who study people, who observe people,
Mhm.
and who are able to communicate what they've learned about all of this in very subtle and creative ways. And it's like part of why I produce is wanting to be that type of storyteller, and just honing my skills, because a big part of producing a script is working with the director to have the script be something that when it's made into a film is a sharp piece of storytelling that connects with people, teaches what you want, gives them the information you want to give them, and give them in a way that they feel it, not think it, but feel it
Yeah.
before they leave.
All right. So let's take another peek at your work. I'm sitting with Romola Lucas, and we're talking about her involvement in the film industry. She's an attorney, and she teaches at college level. Just gifted like that. Let's take a peek of your work.
My mother was a strange and lonely woman who could talk and laugh almost non-stop for a week, then go completely silent for the next month.
This morning, I see the school children in the yard practicing their masquerade stupidness for carnival tomorrow. I hope you wasn't in it.
No, ma.
Your friend Tamika was in it?
No, ma.
Good. She's smart, just like you. Next year, both of you will be in high school in Roseau. So just study your book and forget about that masquerade band movie push on you. Remember what I told you? Don't ever.
Yes, ma, I remember.
If it wasn't for that nonsense, your father would be here with us today. But no, he had to be in the middle of it, showing off, like he had something to prove, until it ended up killing him.
And that was about the most I knew about my father. That and the story he had whispered to my mother about him being the only boy in the village too afraid to climb up Mont Mise cliff and jump 60 feet into the sea below. He felt that he would never leave Corleho until he could take that jump. So every day and every night, his picture in full band movie costume glared down at me from the partition of our 2x4 two-room house, as if daring me to take the jump myself and blaming me for his own weakness. And there was an earlier memory which seemed to come and go, and sometimes appeared in my dreams. My parents always quarreling, and my mother constantly telling my father, "Band movie will kill you, will kill you," I say.
You finish?
Yes, ma.
Here, take this bowl of peas for your Uncle Sidney. It's for the soup your grandmother making for.
All right. We're having some technical difficulties. My apology there about that. But conversation with Romola Lucas is great, and I'm enjoying it. So one of the things that you have done, Romola, in your work is really do a good job. And I'm not going to be the one saying that it's because you're Guyanese. I think you've done a real excellent job in promoting the Guyanese artists and artists. And I believe you released your first music video this year. Yeah. I'll try and see if I can get Raw to play a little bit of it if our electronic setup allows us to do it. But how different is it for you directing a music video versus a film?
Right. So I've never directed a film. Let me just say that. I produced, but
I'm sorry, produce. My head. I'm sorry that I'm
Yeah.
correcting that. I'm asking Romola, how different was it to produce a music video versus a film?
right. Well, so I have to say something there. I actually directed that music video.
You did.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was also a producer, but I directed it.
Okay.
And that's the first time I've played that role on set. Usually I'm just a producer, and all around, as you saw from those clips, I'm holding the board and doing all the odd jobs on set that are required. But this was the first time I was directing, and it was an interesting experience because first you had to like come up with a story for the video, and then go out and try to execute it as best as you can.
Yeah.
And so there were lots of challenges, from the equipment to the crew, to things not quite being the way that you want them, like not being able to get enough people to participate. There were lots of challenges along the way, but I am very proud of the end product and the collaboration with Vanilla, who was a very good person to work with. um and she didn't try to like take over the set or take over the story and have it be her thing. She was just like, you got it.
Okay. You tell me where to go, what to
Tell me
do.
what to do. And
Yeah.
so it was a very good experience.
Yeah. And I just like what it is about. I mean, just 592. Are you kidding me? I am 592. Hopefully we get to play it in a minute. So you've received some accolades for your work. The Ghana Cultural Association has granted you an award, and Caribbean Life newspapers have also granted you an award, and you got some money, you got some grants.
Yes,
You got a couple of grants from the Knight Foundation and Ford Foundation.
yes.
And I really want to openly congratulate you for the work that you're doing, because
Thank you.
that your work is good when others recognize it, right? If you have to go out and really tell, I'm this, I'm that, I'm doing this, and I'm doing that, then something is wrong with the picture. But
Right.
when others on the sidelines are recognizing your work, like the Guyana Cultural Association that has been doing community work in itself for over a decade or more, and Caribbean Life newspapers that has been in the business for so many years, when people from your region
Right.
are recognizing, or institutions from your region are recognizing your work, it definitely speaks to the quality of. What are you expected to do based on the grants that you were awarded from Knight and Ford?
Right. So those grants, just to be clear, were not awarded to me directly, but to the organization.
Yeah,
Yeah. So well, now Third
Third
Horizon.
Horizon. Yeah.
Third in acknowledgement of the work that we have been doing over the past few years, and to give us the support that we need to continue to do it. So one of the things that I didn't say is that when I started CAFA, I didn't have money from anywhere. I was working as a freelance attorney and taking my money and spending it on everything that needed to be done. And this is the way we ran that organization until we got the grant
Wow.
from the Knight Foundation to put on the festival. And even with that grant allowed us to program the festival, but didn't pay us for our labor, right? And so we were all working as volunteers, and we are all working as volunteers. And that happened up until this year, when we got the first grant from the Knight Foundation, from the Ford Foundation. That was a general support grant that would allow us to do this work full time. So because up to this point, I had to earn a living. So I earned a living as a lawyer, and that is not an easy task to like have a law practice, clients, and doing all of that stuff. And doing this is another business as well. But I was able to juggle that over the years. But the better we got at it, the more difficult it was juggling
Yeah.
And so we were very happy when Ford Foundation did that. And then that's followed. So Knight Foundation has been a supporter of the Third Horizon Film Festival in Miami from the very beginning. It was a grant from the Knight Foundation that allowed us to start the festival, and then they granted us money every year to run the festival. And now they've given us money to run the festival, but also support for the organization so that we can have a salary, we can be paid for the work that we're doing. And this took 6 years
Wow.
of work in order to get to the point where we were able to get that type of funding. So that's what it's going to do.
So you guys can kind of, sort of breathe for a little
Yeah.
bit,
Yes.
exhale. You know
Yeah.
what? I love it. I love it. The hard work has paid off. It's
Yeah.
paid off. And
Yes.
I really, really applaud it. Now, with the pandemic,
Right. Right.
how has the film industry been impacted?
The film industry in general, I don't know. Although I've seen like a whole lot of, like, Steve McQueen just released his television series, Small Acts,
Mhm.
which is 5 stories about different aspects of Caribbean life in London back in the day. Um, and it's doing very well. And we had our fourth film festival this year in February before everything got shut down. So, and we had an amazing festival in Little Haiti in Miami. Um, and since then we've had to switch our activities to the virtual sphere. But we had a screening. One of the films that screened at Third Horizon earlier this year was a film called Uncivilized by a Dominican filmmaker, Michael Lees, and it was about him. Like, he's a young guy, and I think it's 5 years ago now. Hurricane Maria struck Dominica and then decimated it completely. So what was happening during that time is that he had graduated from college and gone back to Dominica, and was having this existential crisis, and decided to go into the forest, and until he figured out life with nothing. He was just going to live off the land until he figured out life. And then in the middle of that, he got word that a Category 5 hurricane was coming. So question is, does he pack up and leave and interrupt his quest, or does he stay? He decided to stay. And that is what the film is about. Like, the film is about the humanity that you experience after this hurricane, in trying to pick up the pieces and rebuild your life. So we showed that film at the festival in February, and then we worked with him to acquire the film for Studio Nancy. So then we had an online screening of the film, and there were over 800 people who attended the online screening of the film. So this is a good indicator to us that what we're doing, people will want to see. And being able to bring stories like this to wider and wider audiences is 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 heartwarming. I mean, the film is one of the best performing films on the Anansi site, even though it's a paid film. People are coming to watch it, and that's because we were able to share it virtually. And so we've done a lot of those types of screenings this year, and next year we plan on having as much in person as we can, but mostly a virtual programming year.
Yeah. I think the pandemic has retooled us in so
Yeah.
many different ways,
Yeah.
really has retooled us, and we have a different appreciation for each other, for
Yeah.
life.
Yes.
So many, so many spaces that we find ourselves experiencing ourselves differently,
Mhm.
that we are more appreciative of life and appreciative of each other. Hence, 800 people showed up at a
Yeah.
virtual screening. And if it were to happen in person, you're not getting 800.
No, no, no,
You're
no,
not
no,
doing
no.
that,
So
right?
yeah, we're
Uh,
very excited about the possibilities that are going to come out of this virtual world
yeah, our new normal,
for audiences. Yes.
What advice, as we close this off, what advice do you have for young and upcoming producers, film producers from the region? Let me say that. From the
Ooh, right. Find your own voice and tell your stories from there. Don't try to emulate Hollywood and Hollywood style storytelling. Just develop your voice as a person, as an individual, and have your creative work stem from that. And you'll make good stuff.
I like it. I like it. So I want to end today's program in a little different way than I would usually do it. I'll say my thank yous, and then I want to end with your the video that you directed and produced, 592. Hopefully, Roll can get it for us. So I want to tell you, first of all, thank you in a big way for being patient with our late start, and I appreciate your calmness. And I thank you for sitting with me and having this conversation about your life. Truly inspirational, young, creative, and the old folks say beyond the stars is it for you, and I truly believe that because so many different things are happening for you at once. I am so happy for you. I am happy for you.
Thank
And
you for having me.
I'll be on your shoulder. So you know that invisible person when you start to hop again with your travels.
Yes.
I want to wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Right? Tell our viewership where they can see your work. I know you're on Vimeo, YouTube.
Yes, oh wow, we have a lot. So there's studionancy.tv where you can watch films. There's caribbeanfilm.org where you can learn about filmmakers, and we have a filmmaker directory, and we post regularly on different types of Caribbean films and what's happening in the industry in general. Tamari Film Festival has a website. We're going to be opening submissions for next year's festival pretty soon, so look out for that. It's tamarifilmfestival.com. And then the other website is thirdhorizonfilmfestival.com. We've opened submissions for that festival, so that's another website to visit.
Are you on Vimeo, Instagram, YouTube, and any of those?
Yeah, we're on Vimeo as Third Horizon, also as Studio Nancy. We're on Facebook as Third Horizon, Caribbean Film Academy, Studio Nancy, Tamari. All of those are on Facebook. We also have all of those accounts on Instagram and Twitter.
Okay, great. Again, thank you for stopping by, Romola Lucas. Much appreciated that you sat with me today. So as I say thank you to Romola Lucas, our guest for today, attorney, adjunct, and film producer, I want to thank you, viewership, for stopping by, and apologize again to you for our late start. For those of you who didn't get a chance to view now and are viewing it later on, thank you for your continuous support. I must give my thank you shout outs to those individuals who are very supportive. Claire Ann Goring, who does the flyer every week. Marcio Gordon, who is working on the YouTube. Yash Sunarain, Yasho Comedy. Sunarain, who is working on the website. I'm hoping that the website and the YouTube channel will jump off for next year. That's my plan. And of course, to Raul De Silva of RDE Pros, the hardest working man in the business behind the production of this program today. And I know that we were having some problems with the video. So as much as I want us to try and see if we can play the music video, I'll keep my fingers crossed. I am hopeful. And so I just want to say thank you to viewership. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for encouraging your friends to join every Sunday, 3 to 5. We'll be here again next Sunday at 3 to 5. And thank you for allowing us to come to you, us as in arts, culture, and things in between, every Sunday, 3 to 5. And I wish you a very productive week ahead. Stay safe. I know Christmas is coming up. I know we Caribbean people, we celebrate Christmas, so I'm not going to say happy holidays. I'm going to say Merry Christmas. Enjoy your black cake, your sponge cake, your garlic pork, and everything else all the delicacies of the Caribbean for your Christmas holiday. I'm your host, Rose October, and I'm saying to you, have a pleasant week ahead with Christmas in between. So I will ask Ron, could he play the music video, I think it's I Am 592, Romola. Yeah, I Am 592. Yes. So hopefully Raw can get to that and we'll play I Am 592 on the way out. Oh no, he's not able to do it. I just got it. So on that note, Romola, thank you again. It's been my pleasure. And to you out there, thank you. Bye-bye for now. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.